My name is Evan Hale, and what I'm about to tell you is something I've never spoken out loud. Not to my family, not to the police, not even to the therapist who begged me to just try. Because once you say something like this out loud, it becomes real again. And God knows I've spent 15 years trying to convince myself it wasn't. This happened in 2009, when I was 16, in the Pine Ridge Forest of Northern Oregon, a place locals swear is safe, as long as you don't stay after dark. I didn't believe any of that back then. I do now. My older cousin Liam invited me on a weekend camping trip. He was 21, basically my hero, and the kind of guy who could make even the most boring stuff feel like an adventure. It was the start of October, leaves turning orange, air turning sharp, and that weird quiet that forests get before winter. We hiked 5 miles in, set up camp by an abandoned fire watchtower, and cooked cheap chili on a portable stove. Everything felt normal, until the sun set. That's when the woods changed. Not visually, the trees looked the same. It was the feeling, like something had stepped out from behind the tree line the moment the sky went dark, just watching us. Around 10 p.m., Liam checked his phone and saw he had no service. He laughed it off, but I could tell it bothered him more than he acted. Then we heard it, a long, heavy breath from somewhere in the trees behind us. Not like a deer snort or a bear huff. This sounded slow, human, like someone deliberately exhaling to get our attention. Liam shined his flashlight toward the sound, but the beam got swallowed by the darkness between the pines. Probably an elk, he said, but the way his voice cracked told me he didn't believe that. We tried ignoring it and climbed into the tent, but I couldn't sleep. Not even close, because the breathing didn't stay in one place. It started circling us. Slow, deliberate steps pressed into the pine needles. Crunch, 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 moving around our campsite in a perfect circle. Each pass getting a little closer. At one point, I swear I felt the ground tremble beside where my head rested. Liam, I whispered. Someone's out there. He didn't answer. Not because he didn't hear me, but because he was frozen. I could feel it. Whatever was outside, it was deciding something. Around 2 a.m., it stopped. No breathing, no footsteps, nothing. Then a shadow stretched across our tent wall. Not shaped like a person, not shaped like any animal I've ever seen. This thing was tall, easily 8 or 9 feet. But what horrified me most was the way it moved. Its limbs stretched too long, bending in slow, unnatural angles, as if its bones were made of rope. And its head tilted, listening to us. Liam mouthed, "Don't move." I held my breath so hard I felt dizzy. The shadow hovered over us for at least a full minute. A minute that felt like a lifetime. Then it walked away, not into the forest, but toward the old fire watchtower behind our camp. The tower had been abandoned for years. Locals said a ranger went missing up their back in the 80s, and the station never reopened. I never believed that story. Not until I heard the footsteps climbing the tower ladder. Step, pause, step, pause, all the way to the top. Liam and I lay in silence, too terrified to breathe. Then a wooden groan echoed above us, the trapdoor at the top opening. Something was up there now. Something that shouldn't exist. And then it started calling our names. Not perfectly. Just close enough that I knew it had heard us talking earlier. Ivan. The voice sounded like a recording played through broken speakers. Wet. Cracked. Wrong. It didn't say Liam's name correctly. Stretched it out, trying to copy it. Liam. It was mimicking us. Learning us. Liam mouthed. We run. Now. We burst out of the tent, our flashlights shaking in our hands, and sprinted into the trail we came from. We didn't speak, didn't look back. Every branch that snapped behind us sounded like the thing leaping from the tower. Every gust of wind sounded like it was inches from my neck. About a mile in, Liam grabbed my arm. Stop. Listen. I did. At first all I heard was my heartbeat punching my eardrums. But then, the forest went silent. Not quiet silent. Dead silent. No crickets. No wind. Nothing. Like the whole woods had stopped to listen. Then, from far behind us, echoing between the trees, Ivan. It was following us. We ran until our legs gave out. I collapsed first, chest burning, throat raw. Liam pulled me up, practically dragging me along the trail. But then we heard it again. This time it wasn't calling our names. It was mimicking our screams. My scream, Liam's scream, perfectly blended, played back like an animal call. It was hunting with our voices. That broke something inside me. I stopped thinking rationally. I just ran. Branches tore at our skin, roots caught our ankles, and the deeper we got, the heavier the air felt, like the forest itself was trying to hold us in. When we finally reached the beginning of the trail, our car came into view like a miracle. We sprinted toward it, but then Liam stopped dead in his tracks. The driver's side door was open. He always locked the car. Always. Something had been inside it. Get in. Liam screamed. We dove in and slammed the doors. Liam jammed the keys in the ignition. But before he could start the engine, something hit the car from the back. Not like an animal. Not like a person. Like a tree had crashed into us, except nothing had. The whole vehicle rocked. Glass cracked. And then the face pressed against my window. But it wasn't a face. Just pale skin stretched too tight. 2 holes where the nose should be, and a mouth that split open sideways like a wound. It stared at me, not blinking, not breathing, just learning. Then Liam finally got the engine to roar to life. The lights flashed on, and the creature scattered into the trees on all fours, moving with this horrifying broken speed, like its joints didn't bend the right way, but that only made it faster. We tore out of that forest like the world was on fire behind us. We didn't tell anyone what happened. Who would believe us? For years, I convinced myself it was just some hallucination, some shared nightmare brought on by fear or exhaustion or something we ate. But 2 months ago, 15 years after that night, I got a text from an unknown number, a picture message, a grainy shot of me, taken through my bedroom window, at night, standing over my bed while I slept, and attached to the image, a voice recording, a distorted whisper of my own voice saying, "Ivan, I found you." My name is Naomi Crestwell, and what happened to me in the fall of 2017 is something I still can't explain without feeling sick. I used to work seasonal wildlife surveys for the state of Minnesota. It wasn't glamorous, mostly long hikes, cold mornings, and spreadsheets, but I loved the quiet. I loved being alone in the woods, until the woods stopped feeling empty, and I learned what else loves isolation. A big part of my job was recording owl activity in the White Birch Preserve, which was mostly tall birches mixed with thick fir trees that blocked the sky out like a dome. It always felt too quiet there, even during the day. On this particular trip, I planned to camp overnight because the survey required audio recordings after midnight. My supervisor told me to go with a partner, but both of them called out sick, and I figured I'd be fine alone. That was my first mistake. Around 4 p.m., I reached the survey site, a clearing with a half-collapsed ranger shed. Birch bark was scattered everywhere like snow. I set up my tent, placed the audio recorders on nearby branches, and took notes. Everything felt normal until I heard whispering, very faint, a woman's voice. At first I thought it was wind brushing through the birch leaves. They can sound eerily human, but this was rhythmic, like someone murmuring a lullaby underwater. I called out, "Hello? Anyone there?" The whispering stopped instantly, and the silence that followed was so complete that I felt my pulse on my teeth. The sun dropped fast. Birch forests get dark earlier than normal woods because of how tightly packed the trunks are. By 7:30, I needed my headlamp. I sat near the tent, checking my audio clips, when I heard footsteps between the trees. Slow, deliberate, like someone taking one step every few seconds. I aimed my headlamp toward the sound, but the birch trunks reflected the light back like mirrors. I couldn't see anything beyond a few feet. "Hello?" My voice cracked. No answer, but the footsteps stopped. And then something tapped on a tree. 3 slow taps. Then another 3 farther to the left. Someone was signaling. Around midnight, I activated all the recorders and tried to sleep, but the whispering came back. This time it was closer. Soft, broken syllables forming a tune I didn't recognize. But there was something off about it, like multiple voices singing the same melody in different tones. I slowly unzipped my tent just a few inches and looked out, and I swear to God, I saw a woman standing between the birch trees. Her dress was old-fashioned, faded gray, torn like she'd been walking for years. Her hair was wet and matted over her face. She didn't move, didn't sway, didn't breathe. Just stood there. My body froze. Then her head tilted. Not like a curious person, more like someone who'd never used a neck before. I ducked back inside the tent, shaking uncontrollably, and outside, the whispering stopped. Immediately, like she'd realized I'd seen her. Around 1:30 a.m., something scraped along the side of my tent. A fingertip. A stick. No, it was nails. Long nails dragging along the nylon. Slowly, circling the whole tent. My throat went tight. I held my breath. Then a voice, a woman's voice, whispered, "Open the door." I didn't move. Couldn't even blink. "Let me in." The voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from just an inch beyond the tent fabric, like her lips were brushing it. I grabbed my phone, ready to call 911. No service. Of course. I stayed frozen until the scraping finally stopped. Around 3 a.m., I heard the forest shift, a long creaking sound like birch trunks bending under pressure. Then silence again. I waited until dawn before exiting the tent. When I stepped outside, every one of my audio recorders was on the ground. All of them had been pulled from the branches. I replayed the recordings right there in the clearing. All you could hear for the first hour was wind, and then, around 1 a.m., a woman humming, right next to the microphone. Then a second voice joined her. A third. A fourth. A chorus of whispering women, humming the same broken tune. And then, a voice directly next to the microphone whispered, "Naomi." My blood turned to ice. I never said my name out loud that night. Not once. I grabbed my pack and practically sprinted down the trail. But after 10 minutes, I got this horrible feeling I was going the wrong way. Everything looked identical. Birch after birch after birch. White trunks blending into each other like stripes on a prison wall. Then that whispering started again. But this time it wasn't distant. It was right behind me. I spun around and saw her again, the woman, standing between the trees, closer than before. Her head tilted, her fingers long and gray, dragging along the bark. I backed away slowly. She stepped forward, and with each step, more women emerged behind her, all in the same torn gray dresses, all with wet hair covering their faces. A line of them, like they'd been waiting. I ran blindly, crashing into birch trunks, tripping over roots, scraping my hands raw. But no matter how fast I ran, the whispering followed. Not from behind, not from ahead, from every direction at once. The forest felt alive, bending, moving, shifting like it was guiding me somewhere. At one point, I stumbled into a clearing that I thought was the trailhead, but it was my campsite. I'd run in a perfect circle. My tent was shredded. The ranger's shed door was open now, and inside the dark shed, I heard that humming again. Slow, patient, inviting. Something moved inside, dozens of pale shapes shifting at once. My legs almost gave out. I didn't think. I just ran. Maybe the forest got tired of me. Maybe something distracted them. Or maybe I just got lucky. But after another 10 minutes of sprinting like a terrified animal, I saw the parking lot through the trees. I burst through the trailhead and dove into my truck. The moment I locked the door, the whispering stopped. Just like that. I drove until my hands stopped shaking enough to hold the wheel. I quit my job the next day. I tried to tell myself it was all sleep deprivation, forest acoustics, pareidolia, anything that would make sense. But yesterday, 6 years later, a package arrived at my door. No return label. Inside was a small audio recorder, the same model I used back in 2017. I pressed play. At first, just static. Then humming. That same broken lullaby. Dozens of voices in perfect, horrible harmony. And at the very end, the single whisper. Naomi, why did you leave the door closed? My name is Callum Reed, and what happened to me in the summer of 2013 is the reason I refuse to go near the woods ever again, even during the day. People talk about mysterious forest lights like they're harmless, like little floating lanterns or weird bioluminescent bugs you see on nature documentaries. But what I saw wasn't magical. It wasn't beautiful. It was predatory, and it followed me home. When I was 21, my best friend Elijah convinced me to join him on a weekend photography trip to Hollow Creek Forest in northern Maine. He was obsessed with taking long exposure night shots, and I just wanted to get out of the city. The forest had this eerie reputation even back then. People going missing, strange lights spotted between the trees, cases of hikers walking in circles for hours. Locals warned us not to stay past dusk. We laughed. That was our second mistake. The first was going at all. We reached our campsite, a small clearing surrounded by tall spruce trees, around 5 p.m. The air felt heavier than normal, like it had weight. Elijah set up his camera equipment, and I gathered firewood. Right as the sun dipped behind the tree line, I noticed a faint white glow flickering between the spruces. At first it looked like a lantern swaying in the wind, but it moved wrong. Too smooth, too controlled, as if someone was walking with it. Except there was no silhouette, no shape at all holding it. Just a floating sphere of pale light. Elijah, I said, do you see that? By the time he turned his head, it was gone. Elijah joked that I probably saw a camper's flashlight, but something about it felt too deliberate. While he worked on his camera settings, I kept noticing tiny flickers of light deeper in the forest. Not bright, more like someone striking matches in the dark. And every time I looked directly at them, they'd vanish. But when I looked away, I could see them in my peripheral vision, moving closer. The forest was getting colder too, like the temperature was dropping degree by degree. I told Elijah we should leave. He laughed it off and said, "Dude, this is perfect. Creepy forest, weird lights. This is the best photography trip ever." He had no idea. Around 10 p.m., Elijah set up a long exposure shot and told me not to move around the camera. So I sat by the fire, poking it with a stick, trying to ignore the growing darkness between the pines. That's when I heard humming. High-pitched, soft, constant. It sounded like electricity vibrating through metal wires. But it wasn't coming from Elijah's equipment. It was coming from the forest, from every direction. Then the humming stopped, and something whispered from behind my shoulder. "Look." I spun around. No one was there, but in the trees, dozens of small lights were glowing, waiting. "Elijah," I whispered. "We need to go. We need to go now." He rolled his eyes, grabbed his camera, and aimed it toward the lights. But when the shutter clicked, every light in the forest started to move. Fast. They streamed between the trees like white embers caught in the wind, except they weren't drifting upward. They were drifting toward us. My throat tightened. "What the hell?" Elijah muttered. One of the lights floated into the clearing and hovered about 10 feet away. Up close, it wasn't a sphere at all. It was more like a pulsating knot of thin filaments, glowing from inside, twisting in slow, unnatural patterns. Elijah reached out his hand toward it. "Don't touch it," I yelled, but it was too late. The light darted forward. The moment it touched Elijah's hand, he froze. Not like a normal freeze. His whole body went rigid, eyes wide. His mouth stuck mid-breath. His pupils dilated so far that his eyes looked black. "Eli," he didn't answer. The light began crawling up his arm like liquid static. Everywhere it touched, his skin twitched. He convulsed once, twice. Then every single light in the forest shot toward us like a swarm. I grabbed Elijah and yanked him backwards, but the moment I touched him, I felt this paralyzing cold crawl into my fingers, like electricity and frostbite mixed together. I pulled away fast, feeling pins and needles shoot up my arm. Elijah collapsed to his knees, and the light surrounded us. I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed a burning branch from the fire and swung it wildly. The lights recoiled instantly, shrinking back like insects avoiding smoke. I didn't waste a second. "Elijah, get up!" I screamed. He didn't move normally. He jerked, twitched, then staggered upright like his limbs weren't communicating properly. I threw his arm over my shoulder and dragged him toward the trail. The lights followed, dozens of them, silent, intent. Every time one got too close, the humming noise intensified, a high, metallic vibration that made my teeth ache. The forest ahead glowed with white flickers. We were surrounded. The moment we stepped past the clearing, the temperature plummeted. I could see my breath even though it was August. Elijah was half conscious, mumbling nonsense under his breath, broken fragments of words, repeated in a monotone. "Stop, it hurts, stop, it hurts." But the lights kept closing in. I swung the burning branch again, shouting like a lunatic, and they backed off briefly. Every few seconds one would dart toward Elijah, and he'd seize up like he'd been electrocuted. I dragged him down the trail, praying to hear cars, voices, anything. But the forest was dead silent, except for the humming, growing louder, following us. When we were maybe a quarter mile from the parking lot, Elijah suddenly tore himself away from me. His eyes were wide, glowing faintly white. "Callum," he whispered. His voice didn't sound like him. It was flattened, like multiple versions of him speaking at once. "Callum, don't run." He stepped toward me. Then another light drifted out from behind him, and another, and another. They hovered around him in a perfect circle, rotating like they were studying him. "Elijah," I choked out. "Please come with me. We have to go." But he only tilted his head, just once, and all the lights flared, blinding white. I dropped the burning branch and shielded my eyes. When the light faded, Elijah was gone. I don't remember running. I just remember bursting into the parking lot and slamming myself into the driver's seat of my car. When I looked back at the tree lane, dozens of white lights floated there, not crossing the threshold, just watching. I drove for nearly an hour before pulling over on the highway and throwing up. My whole body felt like it was shaking from the inside. Elijah was reported missing. His equipment was found near the clearing, but they never found him. For years, I tried to convince myself he was taken by something natural, a wild animal, kidnapper, anything rooted in reality. But 2 months ago, on the anniversary of that night, my bathroom light started flickering around 3 a.m. I got up, annoyed, ready to replace the bulb. But when I stepped inside, the flickering stopped, and the light turned pure white. Not warm yellow, not fluorescent blue. White, exactly like the lights from the woods. Then the humming started. Soft, electric, and through the mirror, I saw Elijah standing behind me. Pale, unblinking, eyes glowing white. He leaned toward my reflection, not the real me, and whispered, "Callum, don't run."